Have you ever thought about living abroad or even working abroad? But every time you have that thought, you're like, I can barely understand the business vocabulary here in my own language, much less in a different language, right? Maybe you've had that thought. Well, there's a lot of slang and abbreviations and things that you hear in the workplace here in America, and I, today, am going to break it down for you. The top 5 workplace abbreviations that you need to know, especially if you plan on working here in America or any English speaking country for that matter. Top 5 workplace abbreviations that you must know before you start working abroad, especially here in America. All right, so number 1, we have EOD. EOD. EOD just means end of day. End of day. So example, you can say to your boss like, hey, when do you want this turned in? I'm working on it right now. And if your boss says, I need it by EOD, I need it by EOD means I need this by the end of today. It cannot wait until tomorrow, the end of today. So EOD means usually whatever time you get off work or whatever time the company usually closes. At least for my work, people get off sometimes at 3, at 4, at 5, even at 6. It depends on what time they logged on in the morning. We have just like a set time frame. Typically EOD for us is like 5 p.m., sometimes 6 p.m., but it could be different for you. So whatever your last few minutes of work are that day, that is end of day. EOD. Another thing is a lot of times people will send out emails. My company does this as well, and it's called an EOD email, end of day. And that email just summarizes everything that happened that day or that didn't happen because it was too busy and that needs to happen still. It just summarizes that in the email. So you might get an email and it says, the date and then EOD summary. And you're like, EOD summary, what does this mean? Well, end of day summary. It means this is what we have accomplished today. This is what we have yet to accomplish. This is what we need to focus on tomorrow, but we got this done. So that's EOD, end of day. Abbreviation number 2 is really common these days. It's WFH. WFH, work from home. WFH, work from home. Now, because of the pandemic back in 2020,
mysterious pneumonia outbreak in Wuhan, China.
A new type of coronavirus.
The number of affected countries has tripled.
The World Health Organization has just declared that this is a pandemic.
And then 2021, and then even into 2022, we have become a lot more familiar with this abbreviation, haven't we? WFH, work from home. Work from home literally just means you don't have to go into office. You work from the comfort of your own home. Now, because of the pandemic and because of COVID, a lot of us had to adapt and learn to work from home. Even some still. I know for me, I work from home the majority of the week. I go into office, once or twice a week, but I work from home the rest of the time. WFH is work from home. So if you ever see like your boss send out an email, say, hey, somebody's going to be working on the internet tomorrow, please WFH. And you're like, oh, WFH. It just means please work from home. Don't come into office tomorrow. Please work from home. WFH. Abbreviation number 3 that you must know if you want to work here in America is PTO. This one is my favorite one to use. PTO. All right. It means paid time off. Paid time off. Now, I said it was my favorite because who doesn't like PTO? Who doesn't like getting paid to not work? I love getting paid to not work. All right. I feel like so accomplished. Like, look at you, Carley. Look at you with your big girl job, getting paid to do whatever you want for that day, at least. So PTO is paid time off. Usually when you work at a company here in America, you get PTO, especially if you are full-time or, salary, not hourly at that company, you get PTO. Typically, that's anywhere from I would say the lowest being 8 days to 1 month, maybe even more than that. And that's just in a given year. It doesn't have to be an actual year, calendar year, or even just 365 days. So from your start date until 1 year after that, you have so many days that you can use as vacation or sick, and it's called PTO, paid time off. You can use those days. You get paid for working even though you can't work. So if you're sick one day, you're like, oh, I can't work. Really, I feel horrible and I definitely can't work today. You can use one of your PTO days, your paid time off days. All right. Or you plan a vacation. Later on this year, my family will be gone for an entire month. We're going on vacation and we're going overseas, and I'm using my PTO to go overseas. I'm still going to get paid. Trust me, I'm not that rich. I can't just up and leave and not work. I still need income. So I'm using I'm using all of my PTO to go abroad. All right. So paid time off. So it's kind of like vacation days or sick leave. You can also call it PTO. So if you get an email from your boss saying, hey, I need to know if anybody's taking any PTO in the next couple weeks because we're getting really busy. That just means she needs to know, or he needs to know, if there's going to be anyone taking paid time off or leave, absence, in the next couple of weeks. All right, PTO. Or you can also say, when you send in your email, say, hey, here is my PTO request. PTO request, which means you're filling out either there's an actual sheet your company has or just an email requesting time off, requesting paid time off, PTO. So here is my PTO request. This is me requesting these days off for PTO, paid time off. Abbreviation number 4. We already have EOD, WFH, PTO, and now abbreviation number 4 is not as fun, but the paycheck is fun. It is OT, and this just means overtime. Now, sometimes if you have to work overtime and you don't get paid more, boo! That is not a good company. You should not be working there. But if you work overtime and you get paid more, or even time and a half, which is at my current company, when we work overtime, we get paid time and a half, which means we get our normal pay plus another half per hour. I don't mind working overtime. This year, I have worked more overtime than I have ever worked in my entire life. I've been working a lot of overtime this year. One, because my department that I work in, a few of my teammates left. So we're down on people. We're short on people. We need the help. So I'm, offering my help. But 2, I have, like I said, an overseas vacation coming up. So I don't mind working overtime and getting that overtime pay, that money in my bank account. I don't mind it at all because it looks very nice sitting in there all pretty. Because most of the time, and this is not for every company, it really is unique to each company, but most of the time you get paid more when you work overtime. They are like, oh, you know what? The company recognizes, hey, you're working on a Saturday. You shouldn't have to work on a Saturday. You should be with your family. So because you're working on a Saturday or even a Sunday, I'm going to pay you more. OT just means overtime. So again, your company, your manager, your boss could say, hey, I need somebody to work OT this weekend. We need to get these deliveries out. We need to get them done, finished. Who can work OT? That just means overtime. You can say, all right, I can work 10 hours OT. Here's my OT request. Sometimes it's a piece of paper you have to fill out, or sometimes it's just an email saying, hey, your name, you're going to work 10 hours, and then what you're going to work. Whatever you work for your company. I'm going to do this project or this for these 10 hours, OT is just overtime. So pros and cons to overtime. Pro, more money in the bank. Con, it's your time. Your time, quote unquote, being wasted. Your free time, you're supposed to be me time, wasted on work, even more work. So you gotta weigh it out. And then the final one I have for you all today, the final must know workplace abbreviation is HR. HR. And this is a lot different than the other ones I've taught so far in this video. HR is human resources, all right? Human resources. And you're probably looking at me like, human resources?
What does that even mean?
Human resources, HR. Human resources is just the division in your company or whatever, your workplace. It's the division of business responsible for hiring people, firing or terminating people, training people, recruiting people, doing the screening process, background checks, collecting job applications. HR is in charge of all of that. Also, HR is in charge of complaints. So if you ever have a complaint about a coworker or basically anything work related, you can go to HR. And people go to HR when they want to submit an application for a company, when you need training done, when you are looking for a raise. Sometimes you would take that up through HR, sometimes through your boss. Again, it depends on your company, but for me, for my company, I go through HR if I'm asking for a raise or anything like onboarding process related, like you're starting a new job and you need to be onboarded, the training, the applying, the recruiting process, everything is HR, all right? Human resources related. So an example is currently the company that I'm currently working for, my HR lady, she's amazing. And it's funny because every time I get called into HR's office, you get like that little panic, like you did whenever you were in middle school or high school and you got called to the principal's office. Even if it's for something like you forgot to pack your lunch and your mom took it and dropped it off at your school, and they come over the intercom and they're like, Carly, please come to the office. Carly, please come to the principal's office. And I'm like, what did I do? And then I go and the principal's like, oh, or not even the principal's assistant is like, oh, here, your mom brought your lunch. And then I'm like, oh.
I was panicking for nothing.
Well, with HR, it's like that too. So a few weeks ago, about a month ago now, I got a message saying, please come to my office. It's from HR. And I was like, what did I do? And everything in my head is like, Carly, you're getting fired. The little voice in my head is like, you are such a horrible employee. You are getting fired. And I was like, I thought I've been doing really good this year. I've been doing OT and I've been doing everything they asked. And then I get there. She goes over some performance review with me. And there were some good things and bad things. I'm not going to say I'm perfect. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. But I do my job very well. And I'll just leave it at that. And I saw, some bad comments too. Not really bad, but one was, I talk a lot.
Guilty.
Like, I know I talk a lot. Another one was, I'm not fully trained, and that's not really my problem. It's my department. The trainers haven't had time to train me on a couple things, even though I've been working here for 6 years. So I'm not fully trained on a couple things. I'm trained on like a long list of things, but there's 2 things that I'm still not trained on. That was like the only negative comments. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, am I being fired? And she was like, we would like to give you a raise. And I'm like, here I am freaking out this whole time that I am going to lose my job because, anxiety. And the little voice in my head's like, Carly, you're a horrible person and you're probably going to lose your job. Why are you getting sent to HR? And turns out I get a raise. HR is human resources. So again, final recap, we have EOD, end of day, work from home, WFH, PTO, paid time off, overtime, OT, and human resources, HR. In my opinion, these are the top 5 must-know abbreviations if you plan on working here in America, or even if you're just curious. Top 5 workplace abbreviations. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next video.